Good morning, everyone. Super excited to be here today. We are here for number five. I was going to put up two fingers, that would have been 10. We are here for segment number five of the Comerica Business Sense Boot Camp series. And I am super excited for this conversation. And I have to admit, I have officially said I'm excited for this conversation on every single segment. They just get better and better. And so I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. But before we dive all the way in, I want to just welcome you today. You could be anywhere else, but you're with us, tuning into the Comerica Business Bootcamp series. And so again, I just want to welcome you today. First and foremost, we need to understand as a collective that COVID 2019 has affected communities across the globe. And so what Discover Her Worldwide and Comerica Bank are doing are bringing these 12 bi-weekly workshops that are designed for nonprofit founders, professional service providers, and corporate leaders to remain proactive in increasing their knowledge skills as we navigate this post-COVID world together. And I am your host, Margot Blair. I'm a partnership strategist and the founder of Discover Her Worldwide, a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. And again, I just want to thank our sponsor, Comerica Bank, for partnering with us to bring this vision to light in order to provide not just these fundamental workshops, right, to the community, but also to really be present through these conversations, in addition to the guests that we bring on. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you and have Summer, who is the VP, just share a few things about Comerica Bank and why they decided to partner with Discover Her Worldwide. So Summer, thank you again so much for
Thank you,
joining us.
Margot. Thank you so much. You know what? I'm excited to be here. And I think it's just one of those ways where we can kind of dive into the community and see what the pulse of the community is when it comes to financial education. I mean, my main job is to make sure that the community has needs that are met that are kind of beyond what banking can do. So just the financial literacy and getting an understanding about wealth and getting an understanding about owning your own business and running a business. And this really dials it into having a nonprofit and a 501c3, which is kind of like a world of its own. I mean, nobody really knows, like even accountants are like, oh, well, I don't know. Like nobody knows how to run a 501c3 until you do it yourself because everyone isn't going to be ran the same. So I think this is a wonderful niche program that we're being allowed to work with you and you're hosting, but this is our businesses program. So this is just like running your nonprofit as a business. It still has the same parameters and metrics of running a business. So that's the fun thing that we get to learn when you take your passion and you put it with business and understand a little bit more about it. And I think it's just a win-win for everyone for that understanding to come in. So I'm super excited about the topic today and knowing the numbers behind your story. I'm sorry, vice versa, knowing the story behind your numbers, but making sure that everything works around. So I'm excited to see what Shamaya has to talk about and guide us to, because this is information that you're never going to get in college. This is information you're not going to get from your bank. This is information you're not going to get if you sign up and you decide to go to a consultant and they kind of they don't give you the real deal, because a lot of the times there's regulations so they just can't say everything they want to say. So that's why Comerica is happy to sponsor Margot and Discover Her Worldwide and kind of step back and allow you to speak, because I don't have to mention anything as a bank because there's certain things that I'm regulated at, but Margot isn't. So she can tell you whatever she wants, stories, references, things that I can't necessarily say because we have a different scale. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here and sponsor this. And I hope everyone is taking all of the information, making notes. I mean, you can write like a 2-volume book after all of these conversations that we have. So take it, receive it, understand the worth and the value of it, and process it and allow it to analyze your day to day and continue to move forward. So thank you so much. And back to you, Margo.
Thank you so much, Summer. Again, we're just super honored to have you with us through this process, to, again, be an additional asset to what we're bringing to the community. So I'm excited. And again, before we dive all the way in, you know how we have to do it. We have to give housekeepings because we don't want to overlook some key components. And so go ahead. Shamaya, I think you're ready. Yep, I see you. You're ready. Summer, you look good. So go ahead and take out your phone. For those of you who are on with us live, and even if you're watching the replay, go ahead and do this too. We're ready. for you to snap a picture. And when you snap this picture, I want you to do two things. Number one, go to your preferred social platform and post that photo, just sharing that you're here. And in order to do that, you want to put the hashtag Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp Series. What that allows us to do is to go back once we're finished with this segment and see what were your major takeaways. So go ahead and do that. Ready? Everybody pose. All right, good. And make sure that you are sharing this video. One of the main things that we want to make sure that you're doing as a community member, as a founder, is making sure that you're sharing the resources that you're getting yourself with other business owners and founders as well. And so per usual, if you have been connected with me for any period of time, you already know the drill. You should already have your notepad and pen ready. And if you don't, go ahead and take a couple seconds to grab those. If at any point you receive quotables, which you will, and those quotables are something that's really pivotal for you, it resonates directly with something that you're experiencing right now in your business, or really just put it in your pocket and reference at a later time, go ahead and note those things down. And again, you can you can just reference that you were on the Comerica Business Sense workshop and post that onto your preferred social platform. And again, using the hashtag Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp Series. And so I think we are ready to dive all the way in for today's segment. Yeah? Awesome. So if you're ready, just go ahead and post that you are ready in the comment section. And I do want to take a few moments to really share a little bit about me, because I didn't do that, I don't feel like, the last few segments. And so some people are like, well, this is great that you're putting these things together, but who are you? Like, why are you bringing these things together? And so I just want to share just a little bit about my background. My area of expertise is in strategic partnerships, event creation, and nonprofit development. Again, I am a Margot Blair, the founder of Discover Her Worldwide. And over the last decade almost, I have taught over 10,000 individuals and secured more than $150,000 in partnerships. We work with nonprofits, service professionals, event creators, and coaches, primarily who are looking to grow their partnership portfolios by incorporating events into their business. And so again, over my time in the event space and the event industry, I have put together a 23-city tour, 4 professional development conferences, as well as worked with clients such as the Obama Foundation, Black Enterprise, and employees of LinkedIn, Dallas Mavericks, ADP, Toyota, Prudential, and several others. As well, I am a former contributor for the Forbes Business Coaches Council. And again, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to share with who I am to each of you, so you really understand that the people who are on these trainings that we're bringing, they have an extensive background of knowledge and resources and skills that we're providing to you free of charge. So please make sure that you're attentive. Please make sure that you're engaging. And at any point, if you have any questions for any of us, go ahead and post them in the comment section. And again, we will be here to answer those questions for you. So without further ado, I'm super excited for today's conversation. For this segment, we are focusing on strategic planning, knowing the story behind your numbers. And if you have been on with us for any of the previous segments, you will know that we've talked a lot about making sure that you are running your business like a real business if you are a nonprofit, but also for those of you who are service providers and have an LLC, it's really essential that you go ahead and figure out where you're gapped and make sure that you are really conducting an audit so that you are able to restructure your business in the correct way. And so I thought it would be best to bring on somebody who is really, really near and dear to my heart. And I'll be honest with you, you've heard me talk about her a few times on the previous segments. I told you one day that I would bring on my corporate godmother. I don't even know if she knows I call her that, but I call her my corporate godmother because back in 2018, I shared with you this story when I lost $40,000 in sponsorships from my annual conference, and I was a complete wreck. I had no clue what to do. And I got this call, and it was interesting because she was calling to bring on an additional person to the conference. I was not in the mood to bring on nobody else to my conference because, like I said, I had just lost this crazy amount of money and I had no clue what to do. And so we had a conversation and she was super, super understanding. But here's the catch. She said, "What do you need?" And it was that one question. And I was like, "Lady, if you can help at all, we gonna see." And I just shared with her where, what the problem was, what was going on. And she said, "Hold on three-way, this woman didn't hang up the phone and call people. On three-way, she picked up the phone, made a couple calls, not just one, but a couple calls, and she closed some deals on the phone for the conference. And I want to tell you that after totaling all the numbers, we were able to recoup over $30,000. And again, it was partly because of her making these calls, but she also showed me how to be strategic and to really understand that what I was going through right now was not the end all and the be all. And we had people who were looking forward to the conference that was going to be happening in 2 weeks. And so I was able to really step aside from what I was experiencing together, and ultimately the conference experience was phenomenal. And so again, I wanted to take that moment to just share that story so you really understand who you're going to be learning from in a moment. So without further ado, Shamaya Lodge, thank you so much for joining us today, and I just really can't wait till we dive into this full conversation around strategic planning. And so the first thing, as we just dive right in, I'd love for you to share just a little bit with our community. Who are you? How did you get to this place where you're like, "Oh, there's a problem? Well, I'm a fixer," right? Like you're the Olivia Pope of this realm. So can you just share a little bit about who you are? And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Margot. I share a mutual respect and love for you. You know that I tell you all the time. I'm sure I get on your nerves telling you how much I just adore you and love your energy. You're just such a go-getter, and we need more of you out in the world. And I hope through these series we're developing and building that muscle in a lot of the community out there, wherever you are in the world. So a little bit about me. I've been in corporate, so I'm similar to Summers. I've been working for a financial institution for about 15 years now. And my passion is that there's some things I can share, there's some things that I can't share. But I pride myself on being an entrepreneur. So all of my friends were going out and, they're starting all these businesses and writing all these books and getting bank, however they figured out how to get bank. And here I am, I'm on payroll for someone. And, I was clocking in 9 to 5 and I still am. And I'm happily doing that. But I knew that me being in a corporate setting, I was able to, I needed to figure out how to share those learnings with my community. So, we could know things like measuring our success and the importance of, knowing our stories behind our numbers. And so I went through a lot of corporate trainings that my company offered me, right, for free, right? We're in a community, we have to pay for a lot of these learnings. So I took it upon myself to make sure that if there was anything that the company was offering, trainings, conferences, you name it, I'm there taking notes so I can share with the community. A lot of people don't know what an entrepreneur is. It's like, what is an entrepreneur? That's probably a new concept. Well, I do everything an entrepreneur do, but I do it inside of a corporation, right? So I'm looking for new ways to work. I'm looking for new products to develop. I'm knocking on executives' doors, asking for sponsorships or looking at different community organizations, or have you heard about this group? They just launched. So I'm doing all of the things that entrepreneurs are out in the streets grinding and doing. I do that in my corporation still to this day. And so the things that I really gravitated to while I was learning through corporate was the ability to be a lean practitioner. So oftentimes within the corporate setting, we're always looking for ways to work differently, right? There's always a company that's coming out that's going to do it better, faster, smarter, wiser, more cost efficient. And so I learned through some of the training, so, yellow belt certified, green belt certified, working on black belt, do a lot of shingle work. And so I learned what it meant to continuously improve. And so I went to class, got some certificates, and I adapted some of that framework. And so now I'm known as a lean practitioner. So what we'll hear today is literally some of those learnings on how to quickly identify some of our gaps that we may, or roadblocks, if you may, that we may be experiencing in the community as entrepreneurs, and learn how to quickly pivot to continue to make a success out of whatever it is we're trying to do. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a mother of 4. I married my college sweetheart. I have 4 little girls, and we're just out here living. I'm from Western Massachusetts. My company relocated us to Arizona about 7 years ago. My husband is a business owner. He's a children's book author. We own a nonprofit organization for children. So a lot of what I'm going to be explaining to you all today, not only did I learn it in corporate, but I'm also applying it as well to some of the businesses that I work with. It has not always been easy. You hear me say things. It's not easy, but if you stick to it and if you follow some of the formulas, you too will be able to measure your success and get some funding as well, because that's important. That's enough about me. We'll talk. We're going to continue to talk, but I wanted to just share so far. That's me.
No. And Shamaya, you just pointed out something that I want to just make sure we emphasize. As you know, I am the founder of a nonprofit organization. Summer has an organization. Shamaya has so I hope you're starting to see the theme here. We're not just preaching at you. We are literally implementing the same things that we are talking about and teaching you all into our own organizations. And so it wouldn't do you any service if we are just saying, do these things that we're not doing as well. And so when I say that these things are trusted, they're tried, they're true, do it. And also, we are sharing a lot of these things from experience, lessons that we have applied that didn't work out, and then things too that worked well for us at the same time. So again, through this process, through this conversation, we're just going to go ahead and dive all the way in. So again, thank you so much for Shamaya, and we're excited to have this conversation. So Shamaya, second question rather. Tell us a little bit about the importance of knowing the story behind your numbers. Why is this conversation important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll start with just kind of like a little story, and it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us. I'm sure, if at one point we watched the television show Shark Tank, a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs or product developers, they go to Shark Tank to look for investors, right? We're always looking for money to grow our business. And I was watching Shark Tank one day with the family, and consistently, individual after individual, product after product, you had the same shark. Maybe he was on one day, but it definitely sparked something in my mind. Well, what's your numbers? What's the story? Where are we at? What's your margins? How much did you make year to date? Where are you trying to go? What do you need? No, that evaluation isn't working. And I'm just like, really? And you mean to tell me and some people are successful with answering those questions, but oftentimes than not, that's the major thing that stumbles. And that's like the gap between you closing a lot of the deals. At least that's what I noticed that episode of Shark Tank. And so the ones who knew their story and knew their message, they were walking out of that tank with an investor or two, and they were able to keep those evaluations to a point where they weren't giving up so much of their equity or their business, if you may. And I'm just like, these folks are onto something. So I started randomly asking some of my friends who got 3 and 4 business, because they entrepreneurs. They just came out with the best hot comb ever, or they're making this lemonade. I'm like, well, what's your numbers? Where are you trying to go? Where are you at right now? How much do you need? And they were like, oh, you're talking that business talk. Well, no, right? We need to continue as a community, know that this is what people are going to ask us in order to sow into us. And so the reason why knowing the story behind your numbers is important, because oftentimes it is the block between you being, if someone's taking you seriously or not, you getting the funding or not. And sometimes it's not always about money. You're in the community looking for mentorship from other organizations or executives. You're looking for individuals to take you under their wing and maybe offer up some free services that of which you don't have to pay for. They want to know not only your story and your why behind creating this business, but where are you eventually going? And the only way, in my opinion, to really get there is start to insert some numbers in there. It starts to make things a little real, in my opinion.
That's really, really key. And again, you just mentioned several really solid points. And that one being, what happens if you don't know the story behind your numbers, right? So like taking everything that you said and flipping it. You shared several reasons on why it's important to know your numbers, but take all of that information, everyone, and flip that. So if you don't know your numbers, again, depending on what it is that you're looking to do in business, why are you in business, right? What's that purpose? What's your mission? It's also super essential to really understand what is your end goal, right? Like not just what's going on right now in your business, but what's the future look like for you? And I know most people who are in the nonprofit space aren't necessarily looking to sell their businesses, right? Like they have these social organizations and they want to make that social impact. That's great. But then there's also things that part of the part stemming from part of the things that we're talking about of some of the outreaches or the initiatives on the organization that you may end up wanting to build and sell eventually. Again, we want to be sure that as we're having this conversation on running our nonprofits like real businesses, we're also making sure that we're looking at additional alternatives to really build the longevity of our businesses, but also creating legacies. Right? We don't hear that too often, specifically in the nonprofit realm, building legacies for ourselves, for our communities. And so, yeah, I just wanted to add that. Go ahead, Shamai. It looks like you wanted to.
I think you bring up a great point as well, because even in a nonprofit sector, and it happened to myself and my husband personally, we got invited to a local college out here in Phoenix, and the president wanted to speak to us, right? He was like, oh, I'm hearing about this, what you got going on, your product, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a conversation. Awesome. We got in the door, right? Because that's one of the major steps. You just got to get in there, right? But once you get in there, you got to keep their attention. So we get to talking. And again, like you said, it's a little different when it comes to a nonprofit, from a nonprofit perspective. But he said, how many individuals do you want to impact? And so I'm like, oh, I'm the numbers girl. I should have had this ready. Like, I need to know. He's like, how many souls and lives do you want to change through what it is you're trying to do? So it was less about the money and the impact, because again, in the nonprofit sector, sponsorships, grants, they're going to come and go. But knowing how many lives you want to change, how many souls you want to impact, how many individuals you want to bring along a journey is ultra critical in a nonprofit space, especially now when you start to have individuals feeling like they just want to do something because of all of the social unrest and they know they can make an impact. Knowing how many people you want to impact or how many communities, that is going to be so key when you start to play in this social unrest space right now, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you. Oh my goodness. This is good. This is gold. This is gold. So the next question I want to ask you is, why is it important to ensure that your mission and your vision align? Simple, it may seem like a simple question, but I want to ask you this, because again, we're gonna take off, but I want us to take this second to really talk about the importance of making sure your mission and your vision align when it comes to knowing the story behind your numbers.
And that's a really great question. And I think that here's how I would answer that, right? Because, I'm all about how to measure success, right? And so you can't even measure success if you don't have a mission that aligns with your vision. But how it needs to all come together is you really need to understand your goal. So I absolutely, in the spaces that I play in, I call it my business case. Like, what's my business case? And then I back into my mission and vision, right? Like, why are we even talking about this, right? Like, why do you want to sell lemonade with honey in it? Everybody else been making lemonade with sugar for years. But why do you want to sell lemonade with honey, right? So you have to first understand your impact and where you're going. Back to your point, you got to start with the end in mind. So once you have that, then when you're building out your mission and you're aligning it with your vision, because your vision is going to be your roadmap. That's how you're gonna get there. Right? Your mission is, here is why I'm talking about this. Here is why, right? The impact. Your vision is going to get you there, but it starts with you understanding your goal. Like, why are we even talking about this? Like, why does it matter, and why does it matter now? So that's why it all has to align. You can't be talking about, Nikes, but then your vision is aligned with Puma, because it's just not all going to make sense. It's just not going to make sense. So you have to make sure they're lockstep and key. So you're driving to that success, right? Because everything in between is going to be how you measure it, right? So you're going to be able to build your roadmap and understand how to get there, but it has to align, and it starts with your why.
Big deal. Big deal. You mentioned goals. I want you to do 3 things for us. What are they, and what are the main differences between priorities, goals, and measurable objectives?
You're coming with the heat, Margot. So for me, right, your goals again is your wants, right? Like here is what I know I need to do and document. Here is what I want, right? It's kind of like your wish list, right? That's your goals, right? And you asked about priorities, right? Was that your second question? Are you asking it in a way of how do you measure your priorities, or how do you define which goals do you prioritize? Like, why is it important to what? Because there's about a couple different ways to get at that.
Let's go through them. That, because honestly, the question was together: priorities, goals, and measurable objectives. And I wanted you to take that however you see fit for this conversation.
Yeah. So goals is just that, right? Like, what do you want, right? Really sitting down, understanding what do you want in life. And your goal today may be different than your goal tomorrow, but you got to start somewhere, right? And that's where that priority piece comes in at, right? I like to think about, what's my 30-day goal? What's my 60-day goal? What's my 90-day goal? What's my long-term goal? Like, what do I want to be doing 5 years from now? What's my short-term goal? I usually bucket that between 2 to 3 years, but then I have my immediate goals, right? And that's how I start to prioritize things. Like, I know in 30 days, I absolutely need to do this to get at those goals that I align. I have 30-day goals, like, right? In 30 days, I want to lose 3 pounds, right? That's a goal that I have. And so I'm going to prioritize that over other things, because that's my immediate need. You gotta understand, right? You can't start to prioritize your goals unless you start to understand what your immediate needs, because goals and wants are very different, right? You may want something, but it may not be aligned with your goal, right? You want something, right? We want everything, but we need to make sure we have a roof over our head, right? If we can do that, we need to make sure that we're eating. Those are your needs. We all want big body bins, but maybe our goals are not aligned to make sure we get there. So just clearly understanding and defining. It might be a quick Google search. You may have to, go to the library once Corona figure her life out and start to get some books that really you're going to have to do some self-learning and education and educating, defining the differences, and start to back into what it means to you. Because goals, wants, needs, how you prioritize, you're going to have to come up with a game plan that's aligned with you and your lifestyle, right? My goals and priorities and my needs may be much different than someone else, but you got to start somewhere. I tell everybody, I started my corporate journey in a call center, and I'm boom right now. And it all started with me saying, I know I want to be bigger than what I am right now. I never used to, and people are like, well, oh my gosh, what do you do at your job? Like, oh my gosh, you work there? I do. I'm the face of the company. What do you mean you're the face of the company? Well, when you're calling, talking, and you need help with your products, you're not speaking to the CEO or his assistant. You're talking to me and my homies. And so let's be very clear. That's how I carried myself. And that's why I am where I am today, because I always looked at me as bigger than what, folks would have thought of me. Those are my goals. My goals was to make sure that I get into an organization and I give it my best, and I start to say, okay, I know I want to be here. Okay, I know in order to do that, I have to get there. So I started to prioritize some of the things I want. Well, I necessarily can't go to this conference because I have a mission critical thing for work, and these folks need to see me doing this. So I started to prioritize some of the things I was doing.
So what I hear from that is, even if you aren't where you want to be yet, you better still embrace fully right where you are and own it.
Yes, because that's the growth mindset. And so I'll say some concepts again. I'm your corporate girl, but that's the growth mindset. It's understanding that you have to be agile in your thinking. You can't just say, well, no one in my family has ever owned a business, so why do I need to do it? Or you just can't be coastal. You can't have a fixed mindset, because then it doesn't matter if you have a goal, prioritize them, mission, like that means nothing if your mind isn't set up to be that of a growth mindset. And just be able to just be agile throughout the way, be flexible, be nimble, right? There's going to be 100 people that tell you no, but it only takes that one individual to be like, listen, I'm riding with you. Here is why I trust and believe you. Here's why the community needs you and your message. And I was just having this conversation with recently. I said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that Comerica trusts you to do this and bring this programming to the community. It only takes one. You know that.
And I think you just said a few things that also I want to reference. There were people who were pouring into you along your journey, right? Like you didn't get to where you are right now just with Shamaya alone, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we're talking about too when it comes to strategic planning, because this is something that we did. Coming on board, I was like, look, I need you to be an advisor. I'll need you on the team. I just need to make sure that I'm looking at the end goal, and I'm really able to really stretch my perspective on what it is that I'm doing. And so I want to bring this up for all of us, because again, if at any point you heard me or we've connected, all I'm talking about is collaboration. All I'm talking about is partnering together and figuring out how to work smarter rather than taking the long route around things, and bringing people in to really who really believe in the vision, and you trust what it is that they're doing. Allow them to really speak into your life and help give you that perspective too. And one of those things helped bring this conversation together was really knowing the story behind your numbers. Before we dive into the next part of the topic, I just want to bring up one point and share a little bit of a story, because there was a point where I didn't know my numbers, and that really hindered me. It hindered me when I wanted to partner with people. It hindered me when I wanted to present social proof to clients, and in the services that I provided, the training services that I provided, the coaching services that I provided. I didn't know my numbers. And so people were like, do I really want to work with you if you who's done this before? Like, am I the first one? Right? A lot of people don't want to be the first anything. And so I needed to provide that proof. And it also comes, I'm going to take it a little bit of a different route to bring it back here, testimonials. For those of you who have service-based businesses, when it comes to knowing your numbers, it's also making sure that you have those testimonials where people are sharing, hey, it was so great to work with Shamaya, and in regard to strategic planning, she did XYZ, or she told me she was going to do XYZ, and at the end we did XYZ, and now I'm here, right? Here's the transformation that I went through. And I want to drive this point home a little bit too, is you can craft the message you want the people, your testimonials, to be shared. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because when you're connecting with other partners, they want to know who else has been a product of whatever it is you're trying to sell to them. That's just the reality of that. And we will hear from Summer a little bit later on her perspective on this whole conversation. But I wanted to just drive that point home just right here, because I felt it was super essential. Again, when it comes to knowing the story behind your numbers, there's some fundamental things that you want to make sure that you have easily accessible when it comes to making sure that you want to partner with other people, but then also doing business with other people as well. So the next part of this I want to go ahead and talk about is collecting data. Shamaya, I know this is your wheelhouse, so let's go ahead and talk about that. What are some key tools that we can use to collect data?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff out there online. And again, it all depends on what you're doing from a business perspective, right? So how you collect data that feeds into your nonprofit that you want to sow in the community from an education perspective will be very different than how you go after and collect data if you want to sell, I don't know, headphones to organizations. It's going to just be very different. So here is what I will say on how you can collect data, because there's so many different ways to get at it, but you have to start somewhere. I would say because I play in so many different spaces, so I'm trying to figure out what's the best tool that I could provide this group of individuals, because they vary, Margot, right? So they're for-profit and nonprofit, correct?
Yes, yeah.
One of the things we did, Margot, when we were working, and I guess we can just share our story from a nonprofit perspective and what we did with some of the data we gathered for you. We did it actually post-event, but we can definitely do some things like your research base, right? Because when you're going in and speaking to investors, if you're trying to, earn venture capital, you're going to want to send out some surveys to collect data. That's one of the biggest ways to, especially with social media, to get, in and get some quick, dirty data to start to tell your story. One of the things Margot and I partnered on with two of her conferences now and we did this with the first conference, and she'll tell you it fed into how the second conference that we worked on together was delivered and developed. And so we utilized a survey engine, and there's multiple ones out there. You can find some free ones. You can subscribe and pay depending upon what type of data reports you want to be spit out to you. But we sat down and we started to talk about one of the things we want to get out of it, right? What are we measuring, right? What's the end goal? What's the experience like? How do we make sure that this is an event for all people, right? How do we remove ourselves and, Margot removes her vision and make sure she's feeding into the lives of individuals that will be a part of the experience. So you're going to want to make sure you have your team so they can keep you honest, and you might see things one way, but your consumer might see things another way. So you're going to want to make sure that when you're pulling your team together to build out how you're going to collect the data, that you really kind of have a think tank approach where you have different people from different backgrounds. You want to have some naysayers in there, the folks that be like, this ain't going to work, because they're going to help you get at some of those pieces that you're blindsided with. So we created a survey. I think it was like 15 questions. We didn't want to make it too much, but for what Margot was doing, we needed to get at some hardcore things because, again, we needed the data to drive into some of her programming. So we did that. We had some open-ended questions because we wanted to collect those answers back and start to categorize some of those themes. We had some multiple choice questions. How do you like to receive this information? How long sessions do is it a 30-minute session? Is it 45 minutes? What's your comfort zone? We asked all kinds of demographic questions and made it, not mandatory, but it was important for her to understand when she goes to her investors or her corporations that are providing sponsorships or grants, they know that, listen, 58% of the attendees are POCs, people of color, or this many of, this amount is these individuals, because some organizations have a special set of funds that sow into you if you are touching certain demographics or certain things. So you're going to want to make sure that you're collecting that type of data. So bringing this story full circle, we were able to take the information from her post event She built a team collectively. She broke that data down and she had subgroups that worked on each different thing. Her conference was built off of the mission of her organization and the vision she had for the experience, but the actual experience was created based off of the data that she utilized from her last event. So I'll pause there because I said a lot and I want to make sure you're getting some key pieces. So Margot's going to bring us back around and you can ask me any other questions you have, Margot, about this, because you know I'm passionate about this space.
And this is exactly why I wanted you for this conversation. You can bring anybody to have certain conversations, but there's those few people who are like, no, this is the person. This is just that. I knew that I wanted to have the conversation around numbers, and you were that person. And you really just shared a really great example. And everybody who's tuned in before, we've talked about the conference, so they're very familiar with the fact that we have had the annual conferences for several years. The first year, second year, third year, great. This year, COVID. Next year, we're already set for what's going to be for WeaCon 2021. And so you providing the specific example, they have it, they've already experienced and exposure to the conversation, but it's also an example that they can really pick apart to apply it to their own business. And so again, you mentioned just several points that I just want to highlight and re-emphasize for those of you who are trying to take notes. You mentioned the tools. And then yes, one of the things that we focused on post-event. One of the things that I focus on internally with my team is on-site and post-event engagement. And I think it's super essential, regardless of what it is that you do, whatever service you provide. Through our nonprofit, our service is our professional development conference experiences. Through the LLC, all of our experiences, our trainings, our courses, what have you. But then there's still what's happening before you get exposed to us, what's happening on site or in the thick of what's happening, and then how do I keep you engaged, hooked, and how do I continue serving you after the experience is over, so that I'm not just asking you for your dollars the next time around that we're having our experience. And so again, you just really shared a really, really key piece of this, is figuring out how you can measure the results of how people experience whatever it is that you're doing. And again, if this is a product, figure out how you can get that feedback on people who utilize your products. If it's a service through your organization or as you're a service professional, how are people really experiencing and what are they taking away? What do they like? What do they not like? What are some areas of growth in what it is that you're doing? Because when you first get the idea of thing, whatever your thing is, right? When you get that first idea, 5 years later, 3 years later, 1 year later, you're not doing the same thing. You've grown in some way. You've gotten some new ideas. And so in order to continue to grow and scale, you want to make sure that you're getting that feedback from your target, from your customers, from your clients, the people who are the end users of whatever it is that you're getting out there. And
that's perfect. And you brought up a great point, Margot, and I should probably mention this too, because this is how you're going to want to cultivate relationships and make sure you keep them. One of the things I worked on with another partner is it was very important for her to make sure her donors or the individuals she was working with appreciated and knew that she was doing great things with, their support. And so she actually would survey them periodically, how has it been working with me? Is there anything we can change? Like, what's the communication structure? Because oftentimes it wasn't her communicating. She had a communication specialist or she was working with interns, and she didn't want to have, any love lost, or didn't want them to not have faith in her vision and her organization because of there was gaps or areas of opportunity. And so she regularly sends out notes with survey links or what feedback buttons that they could also provide feedback, because she's constantly checking and adjusting against her approach with them, because she does not want to lose that partnership. And so that is also key. So as much as we want to make sure that we are remaining engaged with our consumers, we also want to make sure that we're continuing to build and cultivate the relationships of individuals who are sewing into our mission and our vision. We got to kind of do both.
That's good. That's really good. I love that we're having this conversation. And I feel what's fitting here, we actually did this together with the nonprofit organization out here in Phoenix. What's a gap analysis?
Yeah. Yes. It will be. Yes, it will be your best friend. And so this is one of the things that we do in the corporate world all the time. It allows us to check ourselves against what we said we want to do versus where we're at currently, and allow us to pivot in the moment and take a step back to really action plan on how we get there. So a want got gap analysis or gap analysis is really individuals defining or taking a step back and looking at what they want, right? Which is their desired outcome, what they got, right? Which is their current state, and everything in the middle, right? So the analysis is the part in the middle, the action plan, right? You want, you got, and your gap. So the gap is what's in the middle. So you want this, you got this, you gapped. How are you going to get from what you got to what you want? What's your plan, or what's the process in between? That's the gap. So Margot and I is right. A nonprofit organization contacted me and was like, listen, we got this event for weeks. Money's looking shady. We're losing some of our partners. I called Margot and was like, Margot, we got a tag team on this. And I did that for a few reasons. Why? Because I know Margot's a student. She's a forever student. So any opportunity to learn and see something in action, she's signing up. I could call her 3 hours before. She like, I'm gonna make it work. So again, you got to have just a certain level of go-getterness, if that's even a word, in your blood to really want this stuff to really happen. So the organization called. I called Margot. I said, hey, here's the thing. Margot's like, well, okay. She's like, what do you need from me? I'm like, look, learn and add value. Do what you do. And so we did just that. Margot was scribing. She was also stopping and probing and asking questions. But I brought that board and those community leaders, we brought them through this exercise. We said, all right, what's the end goal? What do you want? Would you know you want to put on this event, it was a clinic, right? It was a football clinic for this community. You know, you want 120 students here. They knew their numbers. They knew their story. You're telling me you got this right now, but you need to make sure you got $20,000 in 4 weeks. All right. So we're gapped. Clearly we're gapped. You got about 2,000. You need 20,000. You're gapped. And we started to really action plan the gap part. So we would say, all right, you need this amount of money. Who do you know and how quickly can you raise it? So we started to pinpoint and give assignments to different people, because accountability is so ultra critical when you're working through this want got gap analysis. You're not going to get to your want if you're not holding folks, your team, your tribe, that's Margot's thing, your tribe accountable for assisting you. So whether that's your staff, whether that's your family members, whomever is your team, whether it's just you, you have to be able to put some things in place so you can go back and hold yourself accountable to those action items. I'll pause because I said a lot. Margot, bring us back.
So definitely, right? Like, this is a really good one that if you haven't taken notes, definitely take notes on this follow-up, because you're mentioning the accountability piece. You're mentioning the team members. Again, for those of you who have been with us, we've been having the conversation around making sure that you're not wearing all the hats in your organization. So my follow-up question, it's a A-B type of thing. Is it important to have someone oversee the tasks specifically on measuring the numbers, collecting the data? Or should we be looking at hiring a team member or outsourcing through independent contracting? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how should we approach this?
Absolutely. So don't break the bank trying to do this when you start, right? You can really do straw man. You can get down and dirty with some quick stuff. You can survey whomever. You shouldn't have to break the bank to start somewhere. And even if you put out some pie in the skies proposal, you can actually say, here's this organization that we're aspiring to be similar to, and here's their financial report, right? Or here is what they've done and the research they've done that impacted this community. Again, our mission and vision is this, and here is what we're going to do. We're almost aligned to them in this space. So you can mock up your numbers based off of what good looks like in your opinion of someone already doing it before. So don't break the bank trying to figure this out. You will need to get sophisticated as you start to grow and get more funding and more money and all that great stuff. You'll have to start to build out and define some different things, but you shouldn't go broke trying to do this. And then that's when you start to look at some of your corporate relationships or sponsorships and say, hey, historically, we have always requested $15,000 for you to assist with this event. This year, can we request $12,000 and you provide us with the data analyst to assist us with this project? They can get volunteer hours. They can have some feel-good moments. It's not a heavy lift for them. They do this in their sleep. Well, can we negotiate this and you assign us with the resource in that space? So you can definitely look towards individuals to support in this. Your interns, right? Like if you're a nonprofit and you typically work with colleges from an internship perspective, make sure you're really strategic about your reach, right? Like you may want to hire Sally because she just got a heart and passion for nonprofit, but you probably got to go get Samantha because she's crazy with the numbers and that's what you need right now. So that's what I'll say with that. Part B, and maybe we can have this go to part C, because I do want to walk us through action planning. I want to walk us through the plan, the do, the measure, and the adjust phase, because I know folks are taking notes. And this is ultra critical when we start to talk about how do we address and attack the gap, because that's going to be the differentiator, whether you get this money or not, because you got to go in there saying, hey, investor, here is where we're at right now. Here is where we want to go. And here is our plan on how to get there. You're included in that plan, right? So we know this, we want this. Here is the plan on how we get there. And a large part of that comes with your numbers. So I'll stop, but I want to be able to walk us through the 4 phases of action planning for the gap.
No, that's great. You can go ahead. I mean, if there's questions, go ahead and post the questions per usual in the comment section here if you're with us on via Zoom. And then if you're here with us on Facebook, go ahead and post your questions. And again, Shamaira's about to push on the gas, so buckle up.
So the action planning that comes with the gap, there's 4 different steps, right? So we'll start with step 1, which is your plan. So you're going to want to address each gap separately. So you're going to want to identify each gap separately. You can't just say, hey, we got some gaps. I'll use a nonprofit as an example as well. They knew they wanted to put on a football clinic to impact 120 lives in their community. They knew they needed funding for equipment. They knew they needed to feed the children 3 times that day, breakfast, lunch, and a snack. They knew they needed to have waivers signed because the media was going to be there. They knew they needed to have volunteers and a volunteer station. They knew all of this, and they were gapped in each of these. And so they've identified each gap that they had, which is ultra critical. You can't lump it together because one gap's going to be missed. It's going to be day of show and you're going to be like, there's no water, and you need water in Arizona. So that's step 1. You have to plan. And by planning, I'm referring to addressing each identified gap separately. The second part of the action plan to address your gaps is the do. So you have to perform the task outlined and be sure to seek help from experts if needed. This is so important, right? Oftentimes we, especially if you're a one-man show, we try to fix our gaps ourselves. Well, clearly there's a gap, there are gaps for a reason, because we haven't figured it out thus far how to do it. And so we have to relinquish our power in certain spaces so we can move from what we have to what we want by leaning on an expert. Again, you don't necessarily need money to find an expert in that space. What you will need, however, is you're going to have to humble yourself a bit and be willing to ask. And just know you're not giving up any trade secrets by asking someone, hey, I saw you do that really well. I'm trying to do this. Do you have 30 minutes where we can talk about this and maybe you can coach me if I could do some things myself? Or are you willing to volunteer your time to help me get here? Again, because even though we're all here and we're all business owners, we still, it is our civic responsibility to continue to give back. And so you asking someone or a favor of someone who does things in their sleep, don't feel a certain way, because you shine, we all shine. We win in this together, and we have to approach it with that mentality. So again, phase 2 is do. So perform the tasks that are outlined in your gaps, being sure to reach out to experts if needed. Step 3, which is the measure state. Again, we're here talking about the importance in the story behind your number. So this step is very important. So determine if what you are doing is going to provide you with the desired outcome. So you can't list 1,000 gaps and your gap is not going to get you to where you're desiring to be, right? You just can't do it. You may want to be a millionaire tomorrow, but you only need to raise $60,000 for this event. Don't waste your time, because you just don't do that. So you have to be able to measure, and this is going to take you're going to have to do some self-reflections, measure in the moment what you need, right? You can't go to an investor, especially if it's crunch time, saying, well, I know you're a multi-billion-dollar company because I always wanted to make sure I got $100,000 check from you. Nah, you don't need that. Get $5,000. That's going to be easy at that point. Allow them to witness the experience. And then next year, as you start to plan, you got a friend and an ally in that company, and now you're going to have your big wish list. So you're measuring in the moment if those are the gaps that you truly need to be addressing before, in order to meet your desired outcome. So that's step 3, measure, measure, measure. Step 4 is adjust. So you have to pivot and add something new or remove roadblocks if they're not working. This is so important. So you may have said January 1st, you want to make sure that this is what's going to happen. But you and I both know you can never plan for stuff like COVID-19, right? And what did many organizations show us, right? What did we do as a community, as a globe, right? We figured out how to pivot and adjust accordingly. We went all digital, right? We're engaging today through digital platforms. I've been working remotely since the last week in February, right? A lot of people are not comfortable with this, but we're still getting work done. Why? Because we needed to adjust. There was a gap. You can't go in the office. Companies was like, what are we going to do? Well, they adjusted. They made sure that their employees had the tools and resources they needed so they can get their desired outcome, which is continue to meet the needs of their consumer. So adjusting and not feeling defeated, but knowing that you adjusting is only going to help you reach your desired outcome is so important. And so that's the final step to the action plan on how you go from your want, your got to your want. That's the gap piece. We just went through that action plan. But here is what's important. You have to repeat this process for each step until you are clear and eventually reach your overall desired outcome. So you will be in that gap phase, and you're only able to cross those things out if you have met the need. So I'll use an example for the adjust phase. Well, some companies said, well, we're only sending half of our staff home, right? And then Corona said, nah, you tripping. Now everybody, so more people gonna get sick. So now you gotta send more people home. Well, guess what? Companies had to readjust and repivot their plan, right? So they didn't say, we're just doing this once and that's what it's gonna be. So we're gonna get to our desired outcome. They said, oops, our bad, we gotta do this again. So they redid that step, and now we're talking to each other in this way. So I'll pause. That was the action plan. What questions do you have? Was that good, Margot? Are you good? Did you want to go over another step, or?
I already told them you were in the sauce, so if they weren't ready, I don't know what to tell them. They better just catch the replay. That's it.
I can't.
I know, but you really brought us some really tangible pieces, and again, this is one of the main things that I value about what it is that we do, is that it's not that we're just bringing this information. Every single one has provided tangible action steps that our community, the participants who are here with us, whether live or watching the replay, can apply to their businesses today, right now, as quickly as they, choose to do so. And so you talk about for the gap, right? It's any spot where, I have this goal, this is the outcome that I want to achieve, but we're here, we're at point A, I need to get to point B. And I need to figure out exactly what steps I need to take to get to said goal, said vision. And we talked about planning, putting that plan together. That's step one of getting closer to that outcome. We talked about doing, what tasks need to be performed. That's step two. 3, we talked about measuring. I love it. We got to measure, right? We got to know where we are. We got to know what worked well. We got to know what didn't work well, so we don't do the same thing again. My mom used to tell me this when I was a kid. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So let's skip that struggle, right? Hop off the struggle bus on what it is that's working, again, what's not. That's step 3, another step closer to the goal. We're now one step away, and that's adjust. But here's the caveat, as you said, Shamaya, is we have to do that again. We have to do it again. We have to do it again until we've closed every single gap. Right. And so just what I hear with this, it goes back to something. And again, Summer, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we talked about being repetitive, doing some of these things over again until we are mastering what it is that we do, what it is that we specialize in. But again, when we're here to make our imprint through our mode of service, whatever that is, we need to get clear on where we are gapped in order for us to really be able to bridge those gaps, in order for us to make our impact, right? Because if we stay gapped, if we remain gapped, the people who are on the other end of whatever service we're providing, they're not going to be able to receive it to its fullest extent.
I agree with that, and not feeling defeated, right? And so going back to that same nonprofit organization, they partner with a big NFL company or organization, and they always get money and funding from this organization year after year after year. Well, this year they were like, it's crickets, we haven't heard anything. And I'm like, what you mean? Like, I'm looking at your numbers and your reports. Something's not working. Did you call so-and-so? Have you done this? And they're like, we did that. We'll do it again. Have you spoke to this person? Is this person out? And so just having that resilience, right? And not getting defeated, because that's just like, if you're able to kind of just stay in the moment and not give up or not get defeated, you're so close to that end goal, closer than you could imagine. So long story short, NFL called this organization they typically work with. They got the funds like magic, but they were getting very defeated. So they kept having to do that last step again and again and again. And ultimately it was a real big success. But they trusted other community leaders to come in and say, we've done this for too long. We're too close to it. what help us get to where we need to be, because right now we're about to cancel. I'm like, you canceling what? Like these little kids they're looking for you. Like you got 120 lives that you are always impacting. You can't let the kids now. And so we went in there, Margot and I, we continuously checked on the organization, and the rest was history, but they didn't give up. And so I wanted to make sure that I said that to all of you. It's hard work. It's hard. There's nothing easy about this. We're doing noble, like this is a noble cause. Like if this was easy, everybody would do it. But the mere fact that you're doing it and you're sticking with it, it's half the battle. But some of the stuff we talked about today, hopefully it's starting to make sense. And you're just like, okay, you're re-energized. And you're like, all right, I can do that. That's not so hard. Okay, I can ask Sarah, even though I didn't want to ask her. I'll ask her for help. She's going to help me. We're friends. But you're that much closer. She's going to feel good, right? She's going to be like, oh, they finally, whatever she feel. Okay, great. You can have that. But now I got my data, and so we good. And so don't look at it like, just humble yourself a little bit. Don't look at it like you get handouts or anything. And just be nice with it. Hey, I see you doing your thing over there, Sarah. You've been able to get these, help me. Like, I thought we were sister girlfriends, right? And so just approaching it from a different mindset, the rest will be history.
Again, killed it. You're bringing up some really key pieces that I want to make sure that all of us are, taking a step back to really understand not just our purpose, right? We know why we're doing this. And if we don't know why we're doing this, just that's the first piece of homework I want you to do. Always keep it that at the forefront of your mind. Like, why are you waking up every day to really give and serve in the capacity in which you're called to? I also want you to look at a few other underlying factors where talking about like really getting clear on your numbers and how to communicate your numbers to other people. Who are those people that you need to communicate your numbers to? And so we talked a little bit about that earlier, where we said when it's coming to protect prospective partners, you want to be clear on your numbers to really communicate it there. But then also other people you want to partner with other businesses, other organizations who you can bring into to your organization or your initiatives to really build up each other's brands to make a more significant impact. You want to be able to communicate what your impact level is, but also you want to be able to ask those people the questions about their organization. And I want to drive this point home before we wrap up, is the fact that so many times where we're, struggling with funding as an organization, we think that we are, Shamar, you said asking for a handout. I want us to really, really stop looking at it in this way. When you are sharing or inviting other people, that's how I look at it, is you're inviting a prospective partner to journey with you to make your impact. Right? You're inviting a prospective partner to journey with you to make your impact. That's how I want you moving forward to look at what it is that you're doing when you're asking for help. And I put the help in quotes because what you are good at, what are your strengths may be other people's areas of growth. Where other people have strengths, you may not do those things naturally well. That's fine. And that's where it's beneficial to bring other people in who have strength in your areas of opportunity. And so again, just to reference Summer and Summer's organization Feed, she doesn't do anything with the financing. And she has an intern who is great in that area. And she's fine with that. The rest of her team members are fine with that because they are great at what they do. And this intern is great at what he does. Shamaya, and I can attest to those things. And each and every single one of you can now rest in that truth, knowing that if you are great in this area, but not in this area, figure out exactly what it is that you need so you can communicate effectively to when you bring in somebody else for that particular task to be completed. And so we just want to open it up at this point. I mean, we can talk for a good 3 more hours, Shamaya. You know how we do on these topics. But again, I just want to open the floor for any questions that we have. Summer, go ahead. Like if you have anything, that you want to share and bring to the conversation too, because we always love your insights as well. But Shamaya, like per usual, like I told you were going to do, you killed it. You gave us so many gems. And I just can't wait. I look forward to seeing all of the responses that people are sharing that were their takeaways from this conversation. But yeah, anybody, any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself. We're looking at the Facebook. We have a team member who's on Facebook gearing up to send me over questions. So yeah, go ahead, Summer.
Yeah, I'll speak on it. Thank you so much, Shamaya. What you're saying has a lot of impact on people. For those of you who were with us in our prior boot camps, especially when it came to strategic planning and owning up and understanding your operations, this is really a hands-on approach for you not having to hire anyone to do your strategic planning. To be honest, a lot of large nonprofits have a giant board, and we all come in for like 5 or 6 hours every year and do a strategic planning, which is really just as simple as how Shamaya put it, with understanding your gap analysis, understanding how you need to get to where you are, what you did last year and compare to this year. And when you break it down on a level that's easy for you, if you think about it, if you've ever worked for a corporation or any organization that's not your own, do you remember doing an annual goal or a mid-year review or a monthly review? Same thing. So the business, you might work for a $1 billion company, but they break it down all the way to every single employee needing to give a monthly update, a review. How far have you gotten? What'd you do last month? And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know why they want this. Is what have you done for me lately? No, they're analyzing what you're doing so that they can strategically plan on how to move forward. They're just doing a survey on you because they're not touching that area that you're touching. So same thing with your business. You still need to touch those areas. And even the employees or the interns or whomever you have working for you, you need to know what they're doing so you can strategically plan to the next step. And it's not just don't do it once a year, because you're going to be messed up if you only do this once a year. And just like Shamaya said, have those 30-day goals, those 60-day goals, those 90-day goals, because every single step that you take will affect the future of your business. So if you do not take those steps and you don't analyze those steps, when you get 90 days down the line, you're not going to have any idea how you got there or how you're lacking. So if you look at your numbers every single week, at least make a point, especially being the business owner, you don't want to mess up your money. So understand where it is and then move forward from that. And that's my, I guess you got two corporate executives here, Black females. So, hey, we had to beat a few records just to get to where we are. So take the information we're giving. We also have nonprofits. We also have businesses. This is information that is being done right now in this day and age, not something that was done 10 years ago. This is something that's right now that you can take and apply to yourselves right now. So thank you, Shamaya, for giving that information. It is highly useful. And like people say, they're like, don't take it lightly. This is something that they need for their business. You're basically replicating what a corporation's doing into your own business. That's mentorship that you can't pay for. So take it and receive it. Thank you, Shamaya.
And the last thing, if we don't have any questions for today, again, there was so much here. So I think people are still digesting all of the information. So again, if at any point you have questions, you can go ahead and post those back into the comments. Of course, we won't be live anymore, but you can go ahead and jump on Facebook and post your questions there or comments, and we'll go ahead and respond to them. The one thing that I also want to jump back to from a previous segment before we jump off is your board. Your board. These are individuals you can bring in who have extensive experience from the corporate sector, who are seasoned nonprofit professionals, who are seasoned business owners, who've made $1 million, lost $1 million. They know how to never lose it again, right? Like you want to make sure that you're bringing people into your advisory board who are serving as your board members or simply other mentors, as both Shamaya and Summer mentioned, who are really able to help you level up in order to be able to make your impact. And so I just wanted to reiterate that one piece there. And then the final thing that I want to make sure that we all remember is that you have everything in you that you need to make your imprint, and it's up to you to decide what it is that you're going to do about that. So this again was another phenomenal experience. And Shamaya, thank you so much for taking your time to join us and really to be present, and for everyone who is continuing to show up to be part of these experiences. I really do pray that you are being intentional and taking note from these conversations and from these segments, because again, these aren't conversations, these aren't tips and tools and resources that you're getting in common business development courses. I can tell you that firsthand because I've been doing them for years and years, since back in 2013. And so when we're giving you these conversations and these resources from these facilitators, our guest facilitators, I want you to really listen closely and again, put these things in your back pocket. And so as we come to a close, I just want to leave one final reminder that this isn't it. We're not done yet. There's several more segments left. We have, I believe, 7 more segments after this where we're focusing on a number of other topics. Next week, we're talking about finances, the fundamentals of finance with a few Comerica representatives. And then we're going to dive into some deeper conversations around sales, around hiring. Shoot, I'm trying to think of some of the other conversations off the top of my head, but there's several other conversations that are going to be coming in the next few months that I want to make sure that you are privy to and here and present with us. And the other piece, you have two more opportunities to really join us live through Zoom to be considered for the nonprofit pitch competition. So if you are a nonprofit founder, if you are a representative of a nonprofit, if you know someone who has a nonprofit, whatever, go ahead and make sure that you register to join us through the Zoom so that we can see you and so that we can check you off to join us for 7. All you need to do is make 7 of the 12 segments to qualify. And so we want to make sure that we are providing these resources for you. And so just to reiterate, the nonprofit pitch competition is opening up because we'll be 7 segments in, and you will have the opportunity to submit or apply for the pitch competition. And then after all the segments, you will be submitting a video and sharing some information with us about your organization. And then we'll have a panel of judges to select one organization to be the recipient of a $1,000 cash prize, again, sponsored by Comerica Bank. So we're super excited about that. But what we haven't shared, the details are on the website at discoverher.org/Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp. However, I'm also going to be throwing in a 4-hour strategy session for another recipient. And then we have some other goodies coming soon from some of our other partners as well. So again, we are just truly honored that you are present with us, that we get to share these things with you, and we look forward to our next segment. And so just as you go on about your day, make sure you take a moment to go ahead and share this video with another nonprofit founder, another service professional in your network, and let's get to work. We look forward to seeing you next time. As always, continue making impact. Be well.